Joining us now in the Element Wealth Studios, Frank Dungan and his sidekick, beautiful dog, Max, German Shepherd. Right, Frank?
Right.
Welcome to Middays, Frank. So please share with our audience your story. You are a patient awaiting a liver transplant.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Well, thank you for having me. 2 years ago, I developed some health problems and was in the Jackson area and wound up in an emergent situation very quickly. Didn't know much about that kind of thing. I was going for my regular checkups, and all my regular checkups were checking clean, and developed a couple of problems that, they're kind of graphic, so I won't discuss those, but had some problems with my stomach and what have you, and wound up in the emergency room and stayed 5 nights in ICU from the time I got there. My blood pressure was extremely low, and I obviously was bleeding. And a gastroenterologist with GI Associates came in and looked at the situation and said, "You've got a huge liver problem." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, everything has been checking clean." He said, "Yeah, that's part of the problem is your liver enzymes can be good, but you can have all kinds of liver problems until they do a full workup." So I left there. They got me in a situation where I could go home. I live alone. I have no, true support at the house, to say. So went there and started the, protocol that he put me on, changed my diet, started doing a lot of blood work and having those things done. And I have a brother that's a gastroenterologist, but of course he can't treat me. That's an ethics problem, but he's very good about answering a question for me. And anyway, got into the situation that one day it was transplant was mentioned, and when I told my gastroenterologist at GI Associates that I was interested in maybe looking at that, he spun around in his chair, called UMC, and I was there. And they started a rundown, an evaluation, and I need a liver transplant. To live, I'm going to need a liver transplant.
And so when did you learn of this?
It started the night Kobe Bryant died, January 26th of 2020, and within 3 or 4 months, I needed a liver transplant.
Wow.
Had no idea that I was sick. Just, it came over me instantly.
Wow.
And so with that being said, I started going to UMC, and they have a liver transplant unit. They have a hepatologist there that runs a chronic group and an acute liver group, and they have a great reputation. They, I think, are rated 3rd in the nation, and they're practiced at what they do. They know exactly what they're doing. I have a fabulous transplant coordinator. I went through an evaluation that I talked to pharmacists, psychologists, social workers, the whole 9 yards. They asked me some tough questions. And basically, are you prepared to go through this? Are you prepared to change your lifestyles? Are you prepared to take medicine the rest of your life, anti-rejection medicine or whatever it may be? And I guess I am dedicated to trying to live.
So is this scheduled? Is the transplant scheduled yet?
Well, the liver is a little bit different than some organs. The liver is the energy center of your body, from what I understand. I'm not a physician, but I have no medical training, but it's a biochemical thing. It's a biochemistry issue. I'm not like number 30 on the list or number 12 on the list. You have something called a MELD score, MELD, and that is an end-of-life disease score. And the normal liver is a 6, and the higher the number, the worse you are. And some institutions will not transplant you until you're on death's door, like at a 30-some-odd. Every institution that does transplants has a different evaluation process and a different MELD threshold. And I qualify for a transplant So when I'm on the list, I'm on 24-hour call 7 days a week. I have to have a bag packed, and I can only be so far mileage-wise from the hospital. And when they call, I have to go.
Yeah.
And that's that. And we never know when the biochemical match may occur. It could happen today. It could happen 10 years from now. We don't know.
Yeah.
And, there's another thing called a living transplant, which is one lobe of your liver, and UMC doesn't do that. And personally, I would rather have a liver transplant, get a whole new liver than part of a good liver.
Yeah.
Why go halfway when I can go all the way? So there are other institutions that, some people in Mississippi go to in the surrounding states, but UMC has impressed me with their care and their candor and the way they operate. They're straightforward, but they're humanitarian.
Yeah.
And I'm not going anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So how does this squabble between Blue Cross Blue Shield and UMC, how does that figure into your situation?
Well, the first inkling that I got there might be an issue was I was in a terrible head-on car accident 11 years ago, and I had progressively lost my ability to walk, so I had wound up in a wheelchair. And it went from stumbling around and bumbling around and using a cane to 2 canes to a walker. I wound up in a wheelchair, and the transplant team said, hey, you're going to you need to be able to get around better to convalesce properly, to heal properly. So I went to UMC's orthopedic group, and they said, well, you need a double hip replacement, a bilateral hip replacement, and Blue Cross turned it down.
Turned it down?
Yeah, said, nope, need to go somewhere else. I said, okay. So I made arrangements and went to another institution here. They did a great job. I had one hip replaced in November of last year, about 6 months ago. Had the other one replaced in December, about 4 or 5 weeks later, whatever the minimum amount of time could be. So I'm up and walking again, and that's why Max stays with me. He's my service animal, and he takes care of some things I can't do right now.
Yeah.
So then I was convalescing. I was rehabilitating at Methodist Rehabilitation, and I get this letter from Blue Cross saying we're no longer going to be paying any of the bills that culminate from UMC. So that puts me now. Technically, I'm on the list, but inactive.
Oh, what do you mean? What does that mean? Inactive?
Well, same thing it means to me is I'm on the list, but I'm inactive. So I'm on the team. I have a jersey, but I never get to play.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm not considered. They are not looking for me a liver currently.
Okay. So they're not looking for a liver?
Not for me. I'm inactive. I don't have any way to pay for it.
Okay.
Don't know what the numbers are. That's what I'm trying to do is get some help in trying to generate what the numbers are.
Yeah.
And or like Blue Cross has been saying, well, go to Memphis. Well, I sent my paperwork to Memphis, and Memphis has not contacted me, so I guess my mail score is not high enough, or they're busy. I don't know what the deal is, but I can't make them talk to me. And I don't want to start over anyway. I don't know anybody in Memphis, so to speak. I don't have any support to drive to Memphis and get a blood panel done and drive back every day or whenever they need it. So
I read, I think you shared a letter written by Insurance Commissioner Mike Chaney.
Correct.
That went to... who was it addressed to? UMC and Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Blue Cross, yes.
Yeah. And it was a letter requesting an estimate of the cost, correct?
Right. And there I break the cost into 2 things. One is the surgical cost of the transplant. It's a transplant cost.
Sure.
And that includes the transplant, the ICU stay, then the hospital stay, and probably... you could include the rehabilitation. After that, there's the cost of the lifetime of visiting your doctor and the pharmaceuticals. And from what I understand, the pharmaceuticals after transplant are very expensive. So though I may get the numbers for the transplant, I've still got to get the other numbers to see if the whole thing is affordable or not or whatever.
Yeah. We got a break right here. We'll come right back. After this break, I want to find out what sort of response you got from Insurance Commissioner Cheney's letter here. We've got Mr. Frank Dungan. He is a patient needing a liver transplant, along with his beautiful German Shepherd, Max, in the Element Well Studios. We'll be right back. In the Element Well Studios, Frank Dungan. He is our guest, and Mr. Dungan was just talking about his situation as he is in need of a liver, a transplant, and he's caught up in the middle of this disagreement, this dispute, this negotiation between Blue Cross Blue Shield of Mississippi and University of Mississippi Medical Center, the hospital there, which does have a program for liver transplant procedures and services. All right, so you were talking about you're working through this. You've got Commissioner Mike Cheney that sent a letter to UMC, their chief counsel, and also Blue Cross Blue Shield, just requesting an estimate, best I could tell from the letter. But so tell me again, you were talking about you've got the obvious cost of the surgery and the procedure itself, and then you've got the ongoing cost of treatment and medicine, of course, post-operative services. And the letter requests one or both? I know it requests the surgery. I just reading through it, couldn't tell. Does it request that UMC say this is what it's going to cost for the whole deal, for an estimate for the duration of your life, the services, the medicine, so forth, pharmaceuticals? I
don't recall if the letter specifically asked for the post-operative cost and pharmaceutical list, because, Blue Cross won't provide the pharmaceuticals, nor will UMC. You'd have to go to a provider like a Walgreens or a compounding pharmacy.
Yeah.
So I don't know that. I think we might have been trying to cross one bridge to get to the other. But what's important for people to know is that there is something called balance billing.
Yeah.
And when you incur charges, your insurance pays them, and the institution, the caregiver, by law says we're not going to ask for the balance.
Right.
So it's kind of like not asking for the balance billing.
Yeah.
So, but you can also opt out of that and say, I'm not concerned with the balance. If you will pay your part, then I might be able to pay the rest.
Yeah.
Because right now, with the balance billing situation, UMC will not accept what Blue Cross wants to pay, so I don't get a liver. So let's try the route of how much will it cost if Blue Cross pays some and I have the balance.
Yeah.
So those numbers are generated, but it's still not enough data to work with. I've got to have the numbers of the post-operative, and how much of that will Blue Cross pay, if any, and the pharmaceuticals, how much of that will they pay, if any. So I still don't have enough information to make a decision.
I got you. So when's the last time you spoke to either of those parties, either UMC or Blue Cross, regarding this matter? And is there something hanging where you're waiting for them to provide you this information? Has there been a commitment made to you they would provide that?
UMC called me today.
Okay.
A representative with UMC called me today and said, have you received any information from us? And I said, yes. And they said, do you understand it? And I said, yes. And they said, is there anything else you need? And I said, yes, I need the post-operative numbers and the pharmaceutical numbers. And they said, okay, we'll get right on that. Okay. We didn't include that. Commissioner Cheney let me know that Blue Cross has been in touch with him. They haven't been in touch with me, but they were in touch with him and generated some numbers to him. And his office is, they're, to me, the insurance specialist in the state. I don't know that much about insurance, and I'm certainly not an attorney. I don't understand all the language. But he is the advocate or the consumer protection person. And his office is looking at these numbers to see if they correlate with past, the history of charges, this and that, and I just am relying on him because I spoke with the governor's office, I spoke with Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith's office, I've spoken with a lot of people, and the press has been extremely nice. Mississippi Today has done a great job reporting, and y'all have invited me to share and to ask questions and to generate more interest. And my legislator from home, Representative Scott Bounds, has been extremely helpful, and Mike Cheney, the commissioner's office, has been extremely helpful. He calls and asks me questions every day and gives me information, and UMC calls just about every day. If it's not my transplant coordinator calling and seeing how are you feeling, what are you doing? Yeah. Because a lot of this also has to do with maybe trying to keep my mind off of my woes.
Sure.
Because let's face it, I'm not scared to die. That's none of us are getting out of here alive, so to speak, and I've already made my peace. But it's ridiculous to die in this fashion.
Yeah. All right, so is it? Help me out with this one, Frank. If you've dug into this, if this status of UMC being an in-network provider, if that's fully restored, how does that change things? Does that mean that Blue Cross Blue Shield covers all the costs and there's no balance billing, that you're not responsible for any of it? Because typically the way those plans are written, once you hit a certain level on an annual basis, where there is a copay or a co-insurance, I should say, not a copay. Once you hit that, then it's 100% paid for by the insurer. And that's as a maximum by federal law, I want to say like $12,000 a year or something.
Yeah, and that's where I would be. I've already met my copay and my out-of-pocket.
Yeah.
I'm ready to rock and roll on this thing, and my mind is made up to survive this and to rehab properly and do what I need to do, and it would all be taken care of.
So is it because they are considered an out-of-network provider that did you have any responsibility that it doesn't pay the 100% over the out-of-pocket maximum?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But all this kerfuffle has created a situation where I've got to pay for something.
I got you.
And may or may not can afford it.
I understand. Okay. So is there any news on getting this squabble resolved, this dispute resolved? Are you hearing anything on that?
No.
Yeah. I mean,
no.
I wouldn't think they necessarily share that with you. And, no. I don't know that the news, unless, Rhino, you've seen or heard anything. I haven't seen a word. I will say that I did notice that there's a digital sign not far from where we're sitting right here on I-55 where UMC is, I think, taking a shot at Blue Cross on your behalf. And I think I've seen that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I have no idea.
Have you seen that, Rhino? I believe
I haven't seen that one, but I have seen signage, yeah.
Okay. I could be wrong, but I know there's something there about I can't remember the exact statement on the sign, but like Blue Cross doesn't want this to happen, and there's a patient. I thought it was you, but I may be wrong. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, I was, I understand what HIPAA is about. HIPAA is to protect me from somebody sharing my information.
Sure.
And at first, I was a little. With a disability, I find out that people are not as nice to you all the time as maybe you thought they would be.
Yeah.
Let alone in this other situation, could it affect my ability to go to work or whatever? And I just wasn't real comfortable. But the more that I started talking about it, the more I'm like, there's nothing here to hide.
Yeah.
And so I've been made. I know the difference between arbitration and mediation, and I've not been made privy to anything that's going on because a lot of times when I was asking questions, the answer was, well, that's a contract dispute between two parties and you're not one of those parties, so there's no answer for you.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to get answers. And again, there's a continuity of care question. There's a network adequacy question. I've got a transplant unit right here where I live. I don't understand why I would be asked to go out of state.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. But, again, a lot of times common sense doesn't prevail. But I think in this situation, there's probably a rule that says you know, since there is a unit that does that, you need to have access to this unit. I don't know.
Certainly seems being local to be the most efficient situation. That's pretty common sense, I think.
It's better for Frank.
Yeah.
You know, I've got parents here, I've got family here, I've got friends here. I've been around Jackson on and off all my life, and I've got plenty of support here, but I don't have any support in New Orleans.
Seems like it'd be better for all parties involved, in my view. But so, unfortunately, you're just caught up in this rift between two titans, essentially, University Medical Center, Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And I will say this, a lot of people, they're like, oh my gosh, a liver transplant. Well, let me tell you what. A liver transplant's not like what we think it used to be. Yeah. I have talked to people that said I had a liver transplant and I was back at work in a month and all this and that.